Oh, 3 minutes.
Okay.
Greetings, everyone. Come on in the room. I am super excited to be able to introduce to some and re-announce to everybody else the Pearl Hell podcast. So you all got to come on in now. I know you hear me. It is about that time. So it's 10 o'clock in some places, 9 o'clock in some places at night. In some places, it's like 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning. But wherever you are, you have got to be on the show tonight. Come on in. We're welcoming your comments. You know, Pearl Hell is going to have some super exciting, inspiring, fearless, just amazing, listen, thought provoking, because she is a thought leader. She is going to have some thought provoking conversation for you all tonight that I guarantee is going to be transformational for everybody who attends. Now, listen, here's the beautiful part. You can rewind, you can.
Welcome to the Pearl Hale Show. I am super excited, super stoked. Tonight, we are talking about how we can better transform marginalized communities. I have 3 dynamic guests. Now, if you're from 35 to 55, older or younger, I want you to come on in the room. I am Pearl Hale. I'm a minister, life coach, and life transformational speaker. And we are so excited to have our guest. Our guest tonight is Dr. Dana Williamson. How are you?
I am well. Hello, everyone. Thanks for having me.
You're welcome. Love to have you. Dr. Stephanie Roberts. How are you? And Rabbi Bishop Aiken. How are you?
Doing great.
Great. We're so excited to have you. We are talking about how to better help marginalized communities. And I want you to transform marginalized communities. And all 4 of my guests, including myself, have worked in marginalized communities. And they have been such a big part of the transition in these communities. Now, I want to hear your comments. I want to know how you're enjoying the show. And we're going to jump right in. You know, oftentimes we're going to start off first with our quote, And of course, I love quotes, and I love this quote from Maya Angelou. You may not control all the events that happen to you, but you can decide not to be reduced by them. Try to be a rainbow in someone else's cloud. Do not complain. Make every effort to change things that you do not like. If you cannot make a change, change the way you have been thinking, and you might find a new solution. And that's my girl, Maya Angelou. And also, we're going to go into the scripture for tonight. It's from Matthew, the 25th chapter, and the 36th verse. When I was naked, you clothed me. I was sick, you visited me. I was in prison, and you came unto me. And we're going to take it to there, and we're going to delve into marginalized communities. Often they don't have the resources that progressive neighborhoods have. I remember vividly when I was doing insurance in a marginalized community, they only had one supermarket on New Lots Avenue in Brooklyn, New York, in the area I was in, and everything in the supermarket had processed foods. Everything in the supermarket. And eventually, unfortunately, they made the supermarket into a pet shelter in our neighborhood. And we don't have, and they had to walk a long way to the next supermarket. So, having said that, I'm going to delve into our first question. How did each of you get started working in marginalized communities? I'm going to start off with you, Dr. Williamson, and then we're going to work our way around.
Well, first, I would like to say thanks for having me. And now, secondly, I would like to say the heat is on. You would start with me. But no, thank you. So I have been a prison chaplain for over 20 years, and the population that I work with in marginalized communities are returning citizens. And so when I saw the need, so with returning citizens in terms of ex-offenders returning back to the community, we're putting them back into communities, but setting them up for failure.
Wow.
Because of a lack of resources. But we often think that, okay, if we can just get them a job, that's the cure-all. Well, it's not a cure-all when you've been incarcerated for 30 years and you still have the mindset of survival, or that angry mindset that you went in with, and we're not dealing with that. And then we send the returning citizens back into the communities, and they without family reunification, which is very important, housing, and then education. But what really gives me the passion to work with returning citizens is that we think that if we get them a job, that's it. Well, I was dealing with a man who was gang raped in prison.
Wow.
He was gang raped. And then he told me, he said, "Chaplain," he said, "I'm afraid to go back to my home, to my wife." Mm-hmm. He said, "Because I'm going back not feeling like a man." He said, "I don't feel like a man to myself, and I know I would not feel like a man to my wife, a husband to my wife. I don't even know if I tell her what happened to me, if I would even have a wife." So we're thinking that if we put them back into these communities and just get them a job, it's A-okay. No, it's not A-okay. We still have to deal with the trauma of learning how to survive incarcerated. So not only are we lacking resources in the communities, we're lacking employment opportunities. They lack counseling. They lack conflict resolution. How to deal with your anger. It's just beyond getting employment and finding resources in terms of that. We got to deal with that psyche.
Oh, yes. Amen. What you're saying is so true. I'm going to let you, Dr. Robertson Rabbi, just want to piggyback off something she said. I had a person who came to me for health insurance after being incarcerated. I thought he was a Wall Street broker. He was dressed up. And he was looking around, and he was on my schedule as an appointment, and he said, "Ma'am, you have to excuse me because I just got out of prison. I lost my whole family," what you said, And so all of this is new to me. He had, they just sent him there to get health insurance. He just came back from a job. But can you imagine losing your whole family? That's something, and that's an awesome thing that you said. Um, Dr. Stephanie Roberts.
Mhm. Well, one of the main reasons what keeps me working in the community or marginalized communities because I grew up in it,
Mm,
and because of growing up in it, I'm familiar with a lot of things that are happening. Although even today it might be more escalated than it was in the times when we grew up, it still exists. The problems that are, as Dr. Williamson has said, they still exist. And like the word said, there's much in the field, but the laborers are few.
mhm.
And this is the area where you need as many people who have hope to bring hope. And I try my best with all of that in to be that hope, to be the light that they can see that things ain't going to be bad always. It's going to take work, like you said, Dr. Williamson. It's going to take effort. It's going to take great support. Somebody that lost their whole family, they need a support system.
Right.
Mhm.
They need
Yes.
something or someone to constantly encourage and reaffirm that they are somebody and that they can get past this. With somebody that will support them to let them know that there's somebody to gird you up as long as you put the work in.
Right.
Not there to coddle, but to encourage, to coach. Life is to be lived again. And that's what put me in the arena that I could be that coach, that
Mm.
life coach, that hope, that support system to help them when they get back, to help those that are right next door to me. I remember I was sharing with Bishop Aiken maybe like last week or something. I was like, I remember the time when we used to know who our neighbors were.
Mm-hmm.
Miss Lily across the street, Mr. Fred down the block. I remember that. And now, because of the way things are, we don't have a clue who's next to us and who's on the left or the right. Where we used to, if we had a blackout, the neighborhood would come together and make sure that we were fed. We all had something to eat or something. But it's not like that anymore. So that's what keeps me working in our area. That's what keeps me going.
Excellent. Thank you. And I know you planted a church in marginalized community as well. Rabbi Aiken, talk to us.
I just, I thank God for being on this panel, boy. Y'all got the heat on tonight. I tell you, I'm gonna turn off the AC a little bit and comfort myself. But I've been on so many boards. Uh, I have been for the last at least 25 years at the educational side of the marginalized communities, dealing with, from counseling to a very large portion ACS, foster care. Not only that, but I dealt with a lot of what do you call that? I was in Rikers at one time. We was working as chaplains, bringing people out. We had a shelter. One of the things that we saw on the educational side, where we had opened up a program for quite a number of years for high school diploma for adults, and they had to be 25 and above to qualify for that. One of the things that we did see a lot of is there may be resources, but it didn't reach everybody, and that was because of advertisement, marketing, certain places they put it. We wasn't going to look for it. We ain't gonna see, at the time we're talking, we ain't gonna see that in the libraries because we had people that didn't go to libraries. We didn't see that in the community centers because we didn't have adults going to community centers, you know, and we realized that we had to target certain genres of people, and we did it through the church. We put it out through the church because it had most of the middle class, and I'm not going to say middle class, but middle age people that could get the word out to those teenagers and adults alike. So we have done a lot. I've worked with quite a few politicians, and like Dr. Williamson said, it's very interesting when we have a distance, the leaders in congregating people that would come out and speak for the cause.
Right.
That's one of the things, because the politicians don't know what's needed until we get upset, or
Right.
there's a death, or there's something taken. We look at what the Trump administration is doing now. A lot of the information is not getting out. And one of the things that I do advocate for quite avidly is that we're able to get information out that people can make a decision on what they get. We know to vote for certain people. We know to do that, but we don't know what they're about. And when you're not informed on what they're about, you make decisions based on what you're feeling and not what you know. And it has shown through history to be very disastrous. From the church to the community, through politics, to school. It even in early part of my life, there was nobody to tell me. I would get them, go get a job. It's low paying. It's seasonal. When that money run out, I didn't have support. I'd go to school, but nobody would support me. In 2 or 3 months, I'd run out and I go back to work. And this was a cycle for like 2 years of my life. Is because nobody had the adequate information to say, hey, stop. Budget, we have problems with budget. We don't even budget our time right. So this is a lot that goes on. And I see this is going to be a very interesting show tonight. So I'm going to buckle up and take the ride.
Well, thank you for that, Rabbi. We certainly appreciate it. And it's interesting with all of you and what you said. What are some of the hard-pressed issues you've had to deal with in serving marginalized communities? But we're going to let you breathe one moment, and don't touch that dial. We're going to be back with more. How can we help transform marginalized communities? And we want to hear from you. We want to know what you think of our show. And also, we're going to be back in a moment with more.
Your best. So I'm asking you, I'm demanding from you, whatever it is in your life, give it your best. Not for me, not for a teacher, not for moms, not for you. Like, what you want? What do you want? What do you want? What do you want? What do you want? Your best. Grind. Go all the way to graduation and be like, all right, that's one step. I'm up to the next. College, boom, I'm up to the next. Master's, boom, I'm up to the next. PhD, I'm up to the next. Anybody want to go to med school? Yeah, save my life, baby. Thank you. I want a doctor. Thank you. Your best. What does your best look like? And we haven't been able to answer that question. None of you, I would bet, can answer the question. Because we haven't asked ourselves that. We haven't given ourselves that opportunity to give our best.
Thank you so much for joining us on the Pearl Hale Show as we delve into the question of how we can help transform marginalized communities. I'm just going to put up a slide for you. Access to education and skill development, which is what Rabbi Yu was sharing. Access to quality education is a transformative force capable of breaking the cycle of poverty and empowering individuals within the marginalized communities by providing equal education opportunities. And you brought that up earlier. We enable individuals to acquire the knowledge and skill necessary to pursue better opportunities and achieve their fullest potential. And so that's one resource when we delve into the education piece, as you stated. And all of you, for this next question, I'm going to repeat it and get ready. I'm going to do an eeny, meeny, miny, mo on this one. What are some of the hard-pressed issues you've had to deal with serving in marginalized community? We're going to mess with Rabbi first.
One of the hardest things that we dealt with, and that's interesting, is the economic disparities. unequal job opportunities. And, I had a job once where I was a manager of a restaurant, and I was told to only hire a certain ethnic group. And it was because they were hardworking. And it's interesting how psychologically a person can get in your head and almost make you believe that. And it was an interesting thing that they would tell me to do this, and when I didn't do it, it seemed like I had more trouble. But psychologically, they had already brainwashed me to believe that one ethnic group would work harder than the other. But it's not true, because if you're hungry, you're going to work. You need the money, you're going to work. We understand. One of the jobs that taught me that women would work harder than men if they had children. But that's just a mature level, and that you're dealing with on that side. Women will work harder with children because they're going to make sure their children is fed. A man will get fed up and he'll quit. Women will work harder because of the income inequality. It's not equal. So sometimes they will have to work hard. They end up doing more overtime statistically than men. Then there's the access to financial resources. Are you able, this is one of the things that I see most of all with people of lower income, is that they don't have the ability to sometimes sustain themselves until they can get the first check of a job. And these are grants and subsidies should be put in place. We should be able to advocate, lobby, whatever it takes to put something in place that can hold them over until. Most people quit their jobs because they can't make a 2-week or 3-week to wait for a check. They leave it because they can't hold out. And I know I've been in that position myself. I speak from an experience point of view that you get a job, it pays every 2 weeks, you got to wait 3 weeks, and then you only get 1 week's check. Yes, that's going to cause a problem. Yes, it's going to cause a problem. Yes, it's going to cause a problem because my income, most jobs do not start you at top dollar. They start you at entry level. And then the job is not equal to start with. The job, there's not many out there that will accept me. I ran into this one time. I got into a problem very quickly, and I had to end up in the workforce. And because I sit on 9 doctorates, they couldn't place me nowhere.
Wow.
I could not be placed because of my educational status. And I went to many places and they said they couldn't take me because of my educational status, which brings another type of inequality that goes on. And we have this a lot. Sister Williamson talked about them and recidivism of going back to jail because what they're qualified to do, they're not able to do. And when they get out, people don't trust them. I remember when they had the United Negro College Fund, and then they stopped people from getting their education in jail because they were coming out educated, but nobody wanted to take the chance because of that little stigma called convict. I remember, I wasn't in that pool, but I had many people that we decided to help that was in there, and it discouraged you. I got a friend now that's ready to go back to jail because he said he'd rather be in jail than to be out here in this wilderness. So we do need people that's going to advocate, those that can. I mean, it's not hard to advocate. There's many jobs you can do in this society right now. All you have to do is train one to do one right. Train one person to be aggressive in what they do, but yet passionate enough to get it done through time and a process. It's not easy. So, but I'm gonna leave that. I'm gonna hear what everybody else got to say because time is limited. So, thank you.
So to that. Oh, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
So to that, if we can get to the point that Rabbi is talking that they're even in the door, that's a plus, because in the marginalized community, what I am finding, and even in the workforce, being a workforce employee, what I am finding is that most people are basic skills deficient. And so you're looking at someone who has been incarcerated. So now we already know that we can't be weeded out by the color of our skin. They've gotten more sophisticated. So what they're doing now is they're weeding us out by giving assessments. Before you get the job, you have to take assessments. Now, At the time, I had a master's degree and was unemployed and took an assessment and could not pass it. So now we're talking about people who have been incarcerated, people who work on the street, who live on the streets, sell dope, they break in, do different things, chop shop these cars and the chop shops to get money, doing all of this. Now you're putting them in front of an assessment. They were incarcerated. They want to change their mind, be a new creation. They get out. You set them in front of a computer and they have to take an assessment. The assessment consists of a typing test. It consists of Word and Excel. I'm still trying to learn how to do Excel. but this is what you're putting in front of the ex-offenders, or the people who live in marginalized communities who lack resources, and you want them to eat. Okay, they want to eat, they want to work, but you give them an assessment and they cannot pass. And so now what happens is the recidivism that Rabbi talked about. They're going back to prison. Why? At least they got 3 hots in a cot. And they didn't have to hear the mouth of their significant other saying, how come you ain't working yet? Well, I can't pass the assessment. So this is the problem that we're finding in the communities in terms of a lack of resources, not being able to work because they can't pass these tests. And so what we are recommending at the Resource Center when they come to us, we get them a job coach. Most people so I work in the VR department, vocational rehabilitation. If you have a disability, your disability can consist of depression, anxiety, being an ex-offender, having a criminal record, or so forth. And so there's certain things we do to help you transition back into society. And so we get you a job coach. If you get mad at the HR lady because the HR lady says your break is over, and so now because you have an anger issue, you lash out, now you lost your job. So we provide a job coach to help you with these things.
Wow.
Just to add to that, just for a second. So you do have a component that has a psychological stress assessment.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Excellent. The two of you hit on some excellent points. And when you was talking about Dr. Williamson, you brought me back to memory when I was working at a bank. And I went in there low level. Like Bishop would say, most of us start with low level. I managed to finish high school. I couldn't get into college because my parents couldn't afford it. And then you got that other part of it where you don't qualify for aid. So I was in that hot spot. Right. So I figured if I get a little bit of job and work my way through it, that and I did just that. I worked myself through it, got to the point where the job was willing to pay for education, and got involved in it. But then the line started changing. That when I worked to be qualified for certain positions, now all of a sudden they kept rewriting the description. Wow. So that undertone discrimination was coming in, because now here's this colored girl who mastered everything that she was given from the bottom up. She was in competition with those that had the degree. Redeveloped some of their projects in the corporation. That so much so that they had to find me to be able to deal with customers in certain realms. They kept changing my description so I don't make a certain amount of money, so I don't get that promotion, that elevation that would set my family okay. I kept being pushed down. So when y'all two was talking, you brought that back to my memory. But God had another answer. Thank God for that.
Amen.
Answer. But it does happen. that if by some chance you happen to get into the working world, that the lines get readjusted. They get readjusted. And it seems like the better you become at what you do, they change the line, the goalpost again. And it becomes very discouraging. And if you don't have the right support system, after a while you start to entertain it and say, well, I might as well just stay home. Or I might as well just go on the system. So it works in that way also. And sometimes you don't even see it happening, but the lines keep changing when you start elevating.
Yes.
I just wanted to add that on to what you guys were saying.
No, that's excellent what you had to say. As you said, again, all of us in working in marginalized communities, I know a lot of people, they didn't want to work too much because they want to stay off the radar. Because, in a state like New York, your income go up, your rent just don't go up $50. That rent can go up over $1,000. So when you was paying $400, you make a few dollars more, and that's unfortunate. That people have to stay off the radar, so they don't want to get a job making a certain amount of money, which is unfortunate, because you should always think to better yourself and want more money, but so that rent won't go up from 400 to 1,000, they're staying off the radar. So, and we thank God that there are some awesome churches, that are doing some great work in marginalized communities, along with what we're doing, but also in transitional housing, things like that always helps in marginalized communities. But also, as you said, all of you stated, mindsets. People coming out of incarceration, and Dr. Williamson, I remember when I worked in transitional housing, a young man, he'd been raped since he was 7 years old by men. And so people don't understand the mental issues that this individual has to deal with, a whole lot of stuff that goes on. And so we are going to delve into our next question. But when we come back, because they gave us a mouthful, Rabbi, you still ready to go?
I'm always ready.
Doing an awesome job. Don't touch that dial. We are going to be back. I want you to watch this very important commercial about HBCUs. We'll be back in a moment.
What does it take to be a change maker? Confidence, opportunity, and the right support. The Black Student Leadership Summit is more than an event. It's a movement designed to uplift Black students at historically Black colleges and universities. Through inspiring speakers, interactive sessions, and leadership resources, we help students amplify their voices, embrace their potential, and create lasting change in their communities. But to make this possible, we need your support. Your donation grants access to transformative mentorship, educational resources, and while raising funds for HBCU students, every contribution, big or small, helps develop the next generation of Black leaders, equipping them with the tools to thrive. When you give, you're not just supporting students, you're strengthening entire communities and shaping the future. Click the link below to donate today. Join us. Inspire change. Build a lasting legacy.
Thank you. Welcome back to the Paul Hale Show. If you're from 35 to 55, older or younger, I want you to come into the room. I have some dynamic guests. We are talking about how to better transform marginalized communities. Also, I have an announcement to make. This Saturday is the Community Hub Day. Yours truly, Pearl Hale, I will be selling my book this Saturday in Cedar Hill at the Community Hub Day. at 917 Old Strauss Road in Cedar Hill. If you're not busy, come out, join us, and pick up a copy of my brand new book, Bruised to be Used. We are going to keep the conversation going. What are some resources that are needed in marginalized communities typically that are not available? And I know, Rabbi, you shared some things, but I want you to talk about what are some things. Let's see, eeny, meeny, miny, mo. Dr. Williamson, you want to start off?
Can you ask your question once again?
Sure. What are some resources that are needed that are typically not available in marginalized communities?
That's a really good question. Man, we might should have started with the rabbi with that, but
I'm always ready if you want to tag me in real quick.
you go ahead. You go ahead. Yeah, because I don't know what's not being offered. So yeah.
Okay, so access to adequate health care certainly becomes an issue in those communities, because as a lot of times they don't get the correct health care. But go ahead, Rabbi, talk.
Okay, I see what direction you're going in now.
Yes.
You're saying I understand the question better now. I was thinking that you were saying they were not offered at all, but you're saying not having access to proper. Okay. Go ahead, Rabbi.
It's a very interesting thing, because when you start talking about healthcare, you're talking about policy reforms. And if you do not engage with your legislators or your community leaders, you will not know the changes or what has been put on the table for the term that we're operating in. It's vital that we first find out by putting in community leadership, we put small little support groups together to find out what is needed. That's the first thing. Then we can go to the legislators and say, is it possible that we can get funding? And sometimes it's not even about funding. It's just being able to have a safe place in a community center or a space that we can talk about these issues, have a conversation. All right. And then we can look into the policy reforms, because that takes the most time out of all of the process, is being able to get it wrote up, to get it sent to the state capitol, and to be voted on. But you got to find out what it is that is needed in the community. One of the things that I look at is always, it's going to be the same thing, is education. And that the education is not in teaching a vocational career, but being able to advocate or lobby for the resource that you need. It's out there. It's just that we're not taught to look for it or even where to look. And case in point, when a person comes into our country and begins to take the naturalization, the immigration test, they're given all the rules. And the funniest part about it is, when I used to teach high school diploma program, some of the stuff that the immigrants are getting should be taught in the regular high school. It's not. The 3 levels of government, where to go if you need it, who to go to if needed, numbers that is, you got the quick 888 numbers that you get, the 800 numbers, but it's so abstract and vague that it can frustrate an individual to start going into stigmas and isolation, because it feels like nobody is on your side. Nobody is helping you. And if, in my case, and I'll say this with a pride, when I became a homeowner, I couldn't talk to my parents because they was never homeowners. So the information wasn't in my house. I had to go outside and get that. And even when one of them failed, the first one failed, I didn't know who to go to be rescued. And this happens every day. Let's look at the lowest part, those that we would consider in the city's project or shelter system. They get ran around because they don't know who to go to. But here on the other side, on the immigration side, they always get a number. and they know exactly where to go. And it looks like they excel quicker than we do in the land that we was born in. But we just wasn't taught to rely on someone else for resource or help.
Mhm.
I'm gonna pass it right there.
But so,
No.
and with that being said, what the marginalized communities do not have, or they do not have access to whole food stores.
Mhm.
Um,
Mhm.
they got a chicken place here, a chicken place there, you know, which now guess what happens? Clogged arteries, diabetes, heart attack, you
Mhm.
know, and now there's no health care. I
Mhm.
think that where I get so upset with our own community is that we would not fight to have whole food stores and better stores in our community where our kids can sit down and have a decent meal. We will, just because we're tired and want the convenience of it, go buy them McDonald's or Popeye's chicken, or you know, a big bucket of
Kentucky.
chicken strips, Kentucky, you know, but then we'll complain, but we will not protest when they put these fast food restaurants in our communities.
Mhm. Mhm. Dr. Williamson.
I gotta add to that. That's because when most people in the community do not know how to go and sit down with their community boards, that with their business improvement districts, to go in and say, this is what we want.
Mhm.
They're not told. You have one person, and I'm on a couple of boards, and the people that live there is mass, but only a few come out.
Right.
Right.
You understand? And so you have a like a 0.5% or 1% of a community that's making decisions for the 100, the whole pie. And now when it comes out, it's not what was expected to come out. And now everybody's upset
Yeah.
because this is not when they write a bill, it's on point when they write it. When the bill comes into play, the person who wrote it must be in their state capital to receive the information. But because they have to make it that bill broad enough to fit every county in that state, it changes.
Mhm.
It's not just for my block. It's for all 100 blocks.
Mm-hmm.
And it has to go for each county. It changes. So now you have money that should have came to a community, but because it had to be amended or augmented, now you're only getting a piece of the pie. Now
Mhm.
they have us fighting for it. You understand? Then the
Right.
pie is already 50% gone. When you put the people who are going to distribute it, 50% of that pie is already gone. So now we only get a small percentage, as in business. When you get the business loan or the business startup money from your local development center, you should have been getting 20,000, but they'll put three of you together and you only get 3,000.
Mhm.
And you got to the next man, you got to help him pull himself up because you got your program together quicker.
Right.
All right. So we're even in that disparity and the stigma of inclusion, we're still competing against money that is already in our community.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Also, Rabbi, that's excellent with you, what you said, and Dr. Williamson said. One of the things that I saw when I was in the marginalized community is our people also need to understand the importance of voting, the importance of being involved, because a lot of times they were just so, when you're depressed and down, you're not looking at all the moving parts. And so when people came in there and said, vote and get the F out of my face, I don't want that, and so I had to be strategic one time because I said, dang, I don't know what to say. So there was a young lady, she told, they was passing out things, vote, this is going on, blah blah blah. And they were saying, get the F out of my face, and that don't work, they ain't gonna blah blah blah. And I said, miss, do you play lotto? Have you ever played lotto? She
Mhm.
said, yes, but what does that have to do with it? I said, the slogan, you got to be in it to win it.
Mhm.
Well, you can't complain if you didn't put your
That's
say
right.
so, if
It's
you didn't vote. Now, if you vote for a person and they don't do something, that's a difference. But if you got to be in it to win it. She was like, wow, I never heard it that way. I'm going to think about what you said. So we have to be more educated on the importance, you know, and Dr. Williamson and myself, we spoil because my church do a lot of that work. So
Yes, yes.
so we're spoiled on that, and then they do a lot of work in our community. However, when you're dealing with communities where that's not happening, you know, it's tough. But now, Dr. Roberts, what is your what do you have?
Well, as you were saying that, I was sitting there thinking about it when you said that it's tough. Because oftentimes, if a family is struggling, their mind is not set on who's going to be in office. They're really trying to set their mind over how they're going to get fed the next day, or for some, that moment. In a time where we have such homelessness and such high rates of youth being out there in the streets just trying to find a meal, they're not thinking about, or they're not congregating in such a way to find out who's going to be the next one on the ticket. They're just trying to get through the day. And sometimes that's hard to do. Yeah, we do need exactly what you're saying that we need. And I would even add probably little centers in our area where people could just walk in and sit down and ask a legal question, or ask without having to go to court yet. Just be able to ask, what's the process to get an apartment? Just little neighborhood kind of everyday question. Or what's the best way to help my blood pressure, where they don't have to pay for it,
Right.
where they don't have to give an offering to it or anything, like just a little play. Now I know we're supposed to have that in community centers or even in our churches, but it's good that your churches are able to do that, but there are many churches that are not. And that people are filled there, but they're not giving out the information or making it comfortable enough that somebody would want to come there and say, you know what, I'm going through something in my house, I'm being beaten. Instead, they're learning to cope with it, you know. So it's challenging, to say the least. If there was little hubs that people can go to. One thing about Long Island that I love, that I notice, is that they have their police stations, but in every little town, they got them little hubs.
Oh, yeah.
That if you don't get to the station, you can go to the hub and talk to an officer, something like that. You know, at least that ideal, you know, that people could go next to the grocery store and go in there and ask some questions about who to vote for or what's happening. Because some folks is not going to go on the internet. They're not going to be savvy like the young people are. Some folks are talky. And since they don't come out and talk to neighbors no more, or they go to churches not so much no more, they don't know who to vote for. And everybody's a jackleg to them. And all the politicians are evil. And, you know, somewhere where they feel comfortable enough to sit down and just talk, like what Bishop was saying, with people with immigration issues. Where can they go to that they don't have to put money out to ask a question? Just a question, you know, and be given information on where to go next. That would be so helpful. So helpful. That's my opinion.
No, that's great.
Great. That's good.
Great. That's just great.
Good.
I know all of you have played a great part in helping marginalized communities, but I want you to think of a transformative story where something that happened that so touched you. You encountered a person, an incident happened that you was able to help a person resolve, or you wasn't able to help them. Well, what are some challenging things that you have seen working in marginalized communities?
Okay, the algorithm is me go first, right?
I was going to say something, but you go ahead.
Oh,
I was watching everybody's face there. I'm like, okay, good. Nobody move. There's a great importance of collaboration. I remember going back to about 93. where I was in Torah College taking up Judaic studies, and it was a sister that was in the class out of the Bronx, and she wanted to start a soup kitchen. And she's thinking all of the business plan and the budget and how much money she needed. And I went up there and said, "You know how easy this is?" And she said, "No." 1 pack of beans. Started the soup kitchen. Sunday, they told everybody the kitchen started. They didn't ask for money. They said, "Somebody bring a pack of something in." The next week, we had rice, beans, and smoked neck bones. The next week, people they paid their tithes of what the obligation to their church, but they started bringing food in, and it started growing. And in that sense, I got to watch God do what He do, because every week they never ran out of food.
Wow.
And it started from 1 pot of pinto beans. And right now they have a very big food pantry on 3rd Avenue and 169th Street in the Bronx right now. And it all started with 1 pack of beans, the seeds, just the seeds. Wow. It can happen. It can happen. When one person begins the importance of collaborating people of like mind, like attitude, and like spirit, it brings a partnership that can sustain the development of whatever is happening, because it has to be developed. But it starts from the 1 seed.
Yes.
That's excellent.
Wow.
If I may, I remember one day, my biggest turnaround came when we developed the chaplaincy program. My biggest turnaround, I remember Bishop and I, we was serving in Suffolk Boulevard in Queens. And he said, "Come with me." We went outside and we stood in front of the door. He says, "I want you to tell me how many churches is in this one area." And I counted the churches and what have you and gave him the number. He said, "Correct." He said, "If we can just get together with the pastors, not looking to take nobody's members or nothing, just come together for the common understanding that we can do greater together than we can do apart." Well, we started that task, but of course it didn't work the way our imaginations were seeing it out. But it came in chaplaincy. And I thank God for it. But when we migrated, he had his Brooklyn, got me started in Queens. And then after 2 years, it came together. He was like, "You know what? We do better if we bring this together." So we migrated. And every person that we were able to train through chaplaincy went out there and did greater helps than they did individually. And every time I hear the stories, because we love it when they come back and give us a testimony of how they helped somebody here, the nursing homes they went into, the houses that they visit. Okay, remember we used to rely on the church to do that, but the chaplains are doing that. How they stopped at an accident scene and helped revive somebody. You see what I'm saying? Some would get together and take groceries to somebody's house and feed them.
Yes.
Some would actually cook in their house and give out plates to feed people. Talking about help. These are the things that keep me doing what I do through the chaplaincy. It always blows my mind when the testimonies come back. That even so much so that sometimes the pastor would go to their parishioner and say to them, "Well, where did you get that from? Where did you learn that from?" Because we teach folks to help somebody. It's not about platforms and all that. It's about the gift of helps that we all have. So if I teach one, as I think Bishop said it earlier, then they teach somebody else. And the work goes further than he or I could have done in the palm of our hands. It's so much further. God bless this. And we even got somebody to go beyond the marginary and went into the United Nations. We don't know how they advocate, but who knows? It may come back. The seed has been sown. So hospitals, some have created businesses that are employing other people. That's helping the community when you could give somebody who doesn't qualify for the corporate jobs, that they created a job to hire somebody from jail. You see what I'm saying? Giving them another chance. The daycares, that the babysitters that came out so somebody could go to work and don't have to worry about if their kid is going to be okay, you know? So these are the things that blow my mind about the works that we do in our marginalized community. That's what I wanted to share.
That's excellent. Thank you for that.
That is. Yes. So I was listening to Dr. Roberts and Rabbi, and their work is so beautiful. And it's on a macro level, and that's what's amazing about it, is that it's on a macro level. And my experience is a micro, which is individual. But Dr. Roberts talked about through the chaplaincy program. So through the chaplaincy program, I started out. I was in my early 20s, and I was the only one in my church that would reach out to the inmates. It's a undesirable ministry, but it's a ministry that God put in me ever since I can remember. And back then, this is when we were handwriting, doing prison ministry, writing letters, no typewriter. You know good and well, it's a ministry when you handwrite a letter. And so I was writing this young man. His mother was a member of the church. He was incarcerated at 17 years old, just got into some trouble as a kid that he didn't deserve to do as much time because he was a kid. He was 17 when he went in. And so I started writing him, wrote him all the way up until I think 20s, almost 30. I would just take time to just write him, encourage him, let him know that someone on the outside believed in him and told him about, God, Jesus, our risen Savior. So when he finally got out and later contacted me, because again, his mother, we all went to the same church. So I felt safe that way. Most inmates don't have my access to me. And so when he contacted me, not only was he his own entrepreneur, he has a big truck driving company to this day that he trains other previously incarcerated men. He trains them, gets them out on the road. He got out, got his own home. Now, it was a $400,000 home, but I know to you New Yorkers, that's like a shack. But here,
imagine in Texas.
But in Texas, he was living large.
Yeah.
He was out there in Lake Ridge, doing exceptionally well. He got involved with the young lady. He ended up marrying her, but she left him with 2 boys. He raised the boys on his own. And now the boys are in college. They may have graduated by now. But on a macro level, that was such a success story. Yeah. And micro level, but he always allows me to use his story. And I'm so grateful to do it because he inspires other people who have been incarcerated to let them know you are without an excuse. You can do what you set your mind to do.
Wow, that's an excellent story. Go ahead. I feel my health coming. Those stories are so good. Whenever you can help transform a community or transform someone's life, that's what this show is about. Transformational Speaks. Jesus was a transformer of lives. And I remember an individual who came in for insurance. He was about to go back to prison. And he said, dang, I've been such a bad example to my son or whatever. And so I began to talk to him. As long as you have life, you have a chance to shift and change. And you always want to believe in something bigger than yourself. For me, it's Jesus Christ. For me, it's my faith. And I began to talk to him, and I didn't think anything of it. And some weeks had passed. He was supposed to bring me back some more documentation. So I said, wow, okay, that's that. I don't know one way or the other, whether he was listening or not. Anyway, I get a phone call after about 2 or 3 weeks. It was his mother, and she said, are you Miss Hale? And I said, yes, ma'am. And she said to me, such and such wanted me to call you. He got locked up, but he wanted me to tell you that as soon as he get out, he's going to go back to school and he's going to do some things because he never forget what you told him.
Amen.
So you see, we never know the things we do. And as we're planting in marginalized communities, the work we do. And also, when I was in New York, Minister Smith, she had 7 transitional houses, her and Detective Horton. But for her, it's very personal because she said, the Lord sent me to prison to fall in love with him. Can you?
Wow.
How crazy can that be? And out of sending her to prison, this is what happens when she get out. Because this is what happens when you get out. You do something with that experience. It was transformative. I'm loving y'all. I'm loving this conversation. We are going to come back with our last segment. Don't touch that dial. We're going to be back with more. And remember, life changes equals life transformation. Okay? We're going to be back in a moment with more. Thank you so much for joining us. Just another reminder about this weekend, the Community Hub Day in Cedar Hill. I want you to pick up a copy of my book, Bruised to Be Used. It's very transformative. There are some stories in there, mind-boggling stories, but also things to help you. Whatever you've been through can become a tool to help others. And so I want you to join me if you can, or pick up a copy of my new book. And also, I want you to join us and watch the Pearl Hale Show on Thursday's podcast. We're on every Thursday on Facebook and YouTube. You can just type in the Pearl Hale Show. And we're excited to have our guest. And in our last segment, tell me how important it is to be relational in trying to reach people in marginalized communities. And Rabbi, I know you're dying to talk.
I'm usually quiet, but you gave me a chance to look over the questions before. So that was very respectful, and I thank you. And this has been a great panel. It's very important to get to a point in which, and I must keep staying my theme, to understand the root causes of the disparities that is holding, blocking, or a stepping stone. No matter what you do, when you begin to advocate and bring about the awareness that there can be a change, even Jesus went to hell. It was difficult, but he still got pulled out and ascended.
Mm-hmm.
He still got pulled out. All right. We can go through challenges, but we don't have to lose our integrity.
Mm-hmm.
We have to keep moving forward, and we have to find as many people as we can to support. That's the hardest thing to do in what we do in this business of advocacy. No matter who you are, where you are, it's finding like-minded people that's going to go through the process.
Mm-hmm.
I've found in the past that many want to do their own thing. There's nothing wrong with that, but state that up front.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, look, okay, I'm here. When I get to this point, I'm going to go my route. Because when this thing, most of these things crash and burn because people drop off because they had a different agenda.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And it causes those that are coming up behind them a lot of times to, instead of being inclusive, they become exclusive because they say it's dying, it's this, it's that. No, it's not. It's just a pillow fell, hold up the roof, moor it up, and keep moving. Just keep moving. I always tell Dr. Roberts, a lot of things you hear, don't let it discourage you. Keep moving forward. You don't have to stop to put out a brush fire. You don't have to move with the tender or the briar. Just keep moving forward. It will solve itself, because the more you get away from those small little brush fires,
Mm-hmm.
the more challenging it's going to get, and the more confidence you'll get and security. The more you see how much you distance yourself from the naysayers.
Mm-hmm.
We can foster this, but we have to find it, and it's all in us. Can we prove this can be done? Can you persuade people to help? And will they stay for the process?
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna stop right there.
Mm-hmm.
Excellent.
Mm-hmm. Very nice. Very nice. Well said. How important is it to be relational? It's very important, because to be able to identify also gives you the unction to be able to help push to see the resolution. If God has made you, brought you through and made you a conqueror of it, that means you now obtain something that could be the benefit to somebody else.
Mhm.
I know what it's like to be scared. I know what it's like to feel uneducated. I know what it's like to be stepped on, ridiculed, talked about. I know what it's like to be isolated, or what you say, pushed to the side. I know what it's like to be ostracized and put down, to be jealous of, to be ridiculed. We know what it's like to be called names and mocked, okay, just because you are and you just breathing. We know what it's like to have and have not. Many of us know what it's like to have relationships that fall apart and make you look foolish. You thought you gave it all, or you had the right one. We know what it's like when to want to be able to manage something and don't have the resources to manage it, and it falls apart before the foundation of people to talk about. We can relate to some of these things in ways that can help somebody else. To be relational also gets somebody to see that if you can get through this, then it's got to be a hope for me.
Amen.
If she can stand against the wiles of the enemy, how much more if I believe? You see what I'm saying? Everything is not to be just tucked under a rug. Some things are there to. One of my favorite characters in the Bible is Deborah. That woman went to war on a front line leading men. And today, the women are on the front line, going through marginalized histories and overcome. We now fly planes. We drive trains. We manage Fortune 500 corporation. Okay. We are on the top charts of songs and poems and books. And many of them came from our area. They are hope for us that we do not die in this, but we can overcome this. Will it take work? Absolutely. Does it take support system? Absolutely. Do we look for resources? Absolutely. It can be done. I'm a girl that did not get that formal education through the secular. God allowed it to be blocked, but he put something in me to keep trying until I find out what my niche was to work in our area. And when I found that, it became my love. And when it became my love, it enabled me to be able to tell it to somebody without reservation, hesitation, to be held back. I just tell it. And it embraces with the love of God. So, yeah, relational is important. It makes you relatable, and you will touch a heart because of it. That's
Excellent.
Amen. Amen.
Excellent.
Beautifully said. Beautifully said. And I will say, Dr. Roberts, we are on the face of books, and it ain't a cookbook.
That's right.
No, so I want to say that it's important for us to have the spirit of Harriet Tubman, where we go back and get our people. We take them from and we bring them to. It's important to have the spirit of Jesus Christ. He said, nevertheless, let your will be done, not mine.
That's right.
And it's important for us to have the spirit of Malcolm X.
You better.
By any means necessary.
Yes.
And so I say that if our mission is not to be people driven, then I question our mission.
Thank you so much for that. You've all said some great things. You've all said some impactful things. And I will leave you with this, the importance of being relational. God had to work on me because I was so scared in the marginalized communities, because you're dealing with gunshots and all of that. And I'm not realizing that these young men are not coming out because they don't want to be initiated in gangs, all kinds of things. And I'm saying, you want insurance, you better come out and get it. But it wasn't that. It was a much bigger problem. And so once I calmed down and learned, look at the underlying circumstances, learn to just be relational. So if all they know how to talk about is Tupac, you learn something about Tupac. They, and then you get an opening to be able to talk to them about other things.
That's right.
And so, having said that, listen, thank each and every one of you so much for joining us on the Pearl Hale Show.
Thank you
for this conversation. Thank you, Rabbi. Thank you, Rabbi Aiken. Thank you, Dr. Roberts. Thank you, Dr. Dana Williamson. And I thank all of you for watching. And I want to leave you with this quote: forget about past failures, because whatever God has before you is better and greater than what you left behind. Have a blessed evening. And thank you so much for watching. And my name is Pearl Hale. I'm your life coach, minister, and life transformational speaker. And we're going to be back next week with another transformative conversation. And remember, life changes equals life transformation.
Amen.
Thank you so much for watching.
Bye.